we're going to talk about getting course sales through Instagram ads and how Jen Spivak over at the Ad Girls helped go from almost nothing, from a launch model to an evergreen model from 1x to 6x for one course creator using Facebook and Instagram ads. We're going to talk about how they use the human being analysis, the 3 things that they did to improve and test this. The not so secret reason that using an agency actually makes ads, will improve your ads faster. And her biggest surprise that they tested. But Jen, thank you so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show.
Thanks for having me. Super fun.
And thank you all for watching. You know, we're going to get into it, but don't forget this is brought to you by videocasestory.com. One of the best ways to help your conversion rates of your agency or your website is through your customer stories. Go to videocasestory.com, learn 50 ways to learn how to use case stories in your sales, marketing, and operations. All right, let's get to it. Welcome, I'm Garlic here, and today we're talking with Jennifer Spivak from the Ad Girls about how they helped one course fill up using Facebook and Instagram ads. And then she's gonna talk a little bit about how they're using customer stories and case stories inside of their own marketing and the tactics side of this. But Jennifer, thank you so much for being on the show.
Oh, thanks for having me on the show.
And so tell us real quick about the Ad Girls, and then let's get into your story.
Yeah, so the Ad Girls is an all-female Facebook and Instagram advertising agency. We work not exclusively, but primarily with other female entrepreneurs, and we scale them from 6 to 7 figures and beyond using marketing tactics that don't feel gross.
Love it. Love it. I hate gross marketing tactics. But yep. Unless they're really, really gross and they make me laugh, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah, look, I think at the end of the day, right? Because like we used to say, like, we don't do bro marketing, and people are like, what does gross mean? And I think at the end of the day, what it comes down to is we believe that you can still be very scaling minded and generate a crap ton of money while not using marketing tactics that don't feel out of alignment. We don't have to do false scarcity just because somebody else says we does. We don't have to have a webinar just because somebody else says we does. We can actually make our marketing decisions based on what feels best for our clients.
Yes. Yes. And I think that is important because there's so many ways to do it and ways to do it right. And I think there's a lot of people out there promoting going, you can make $1 billion tomorrow. And all you have to do is just say whatever I tell you.
Exactly. Go into this box and then everything will be okay.
Yes. Yes. Which isn't the fact. And it's work. So tell us about this company. Tell us first of all, the results you got for it. Because I mean, I think everyone's trying to sell courses. And
yes.
and you know it's beneficial, and if you make a good course you can sell it, but if you make a bad course you can sell it, but I'm hoping this was a good course.
I think it's a really great course.
Okay, and so tell us a little bit about the course and what they tried before and why they came to you.
Yes, so this was is our client. Her name is Tina, and she, prior to coming to us, she had a really amazing successful course on how to be a full-time influencer. She herself was a full-time influencer. And then during COVID, saw an opportunity to create a program around it. And she had grown her business and generated a lot of course sales through organic, through word of mouth, and primarily through doing live launches. And so when she came to us, she was tired of the launch model. And we have a lot of clients in a similar state where, you know, something about their marketing, something about their offer, and something about their messaging has in fact been validated, which is important for running ads. It's been validated by the live launch, but they're tired of having to do everything manually. They're tired of having to, you know, turn it on for a few weeks and kill themselves just to get a couple of sales. And so Tina coming to us, really her goal was translating and transitioning what she had been doing organically and through live launches into an evergreen webinar funnel where she could sell her course, which is about $1,000, and sell it on autopilot.
And for those that don't know, explain to me what an evergreen funnel is.
Yeah, so evergreen is just something that is like running all of the time. With the live launch model, it's about, hey, we're going to do this massive live event. We're going to open our cart. We're going to open the doors for such and such number of days, and then doors close. And so you have, this is an interesting part, that added urgency of doors are about to close. But again, it's this big event that gets exhausting that people tend to get really tired of, versus evergreen, which is, whenever you see the ad for the free training or whatever it is, you can go right in, you can watch it. It's not happening live, it's pre-recorded, and then you can go directly into enrolling into the program basically at any time throughout the year.
Oh, yeah. And it's interesting because I've done both. And you talk to anyone that does launches and they will tell you, we did with Giants Video, and man, that's a lot of work. And
Yes.
and you can see the work on the outside, but it's even more work when you get on the inside of it. It's like one of these things that you're like, oh, I forgot about this, and I forgot about this, and I forgot about that. And then you get all of it and you make a ton of money. And then it's like, what's next?
Then you have to go sleep for 6 weeks because you're like dead. And then you have to like turn it on and produce all of that again and again. And look, not knocking launches, right? We have plenty of clients who do launches successfully. We have plenty of clients who came to us wanting to add in an evergreen component while still keeping the launch model, 2 or 3 times a year. So it's not that launches are bad. It's just a lifestyle choice at the end of the day.
Yes. I mean, it is fun to do it once in a while, but it's like, yeah, it's kind of like training for triathlons. And then you get the triathlon and you're like, oh, exhausted. And the first few times it's awesome. There's certain people that can do it all the time.
Yes.
And there's certain people who are like, I'm going to go back to some 5Ks every week.
Yes. A little more sustainable.
Yeah. And it's nice. Evergreen. I love Evergreen. We went into Evergreen with Giants Video. It's just so nice to wake up and have a few sales come through.
Come on, like that's such a great experience. I agree with you.
It is awesome to wake up and have made money and help people. So tell me about the process then of what you did to make this evergreen model for her.
So, okay, the first thing that we did is we basically started with a funnel that looked as close as possible to what she had been doing live, but again, just everything pre-recorded, right? Let's not try and fix something that isn't broken. It has been validated. We knew we'd probably have to make some tweaks, but that was a great place to start. And so what she had always done was like a live webinar and then, had her open cart period. And so she just built a, similar funnel with the evergreen model, which was a pre-recorded webinar, and her open cart period, sort of in quotations, open cart period, right? Because technically it was still always open, but there was an incentive within a certain amount of days of people watching the automated webinar for them to go ahead and enroll. So we were still able to create that urgency. And so initially we created really amazing, beautiful ads, really honed in on her messaging and showcasing who she is as a person, really, eye-catching, scroll-stopping photos, the stuff that we always create for all of our clients. And we began our process of testing, trying different ads, trying different audiences. And really the way that we're always looking at it is we've got to, get the ad part right first, but that's rarely ever enough. So that was our starting point of finding out where we could get the best click-through rates and the lowest cost per lead, but knowing that that would likely not necessarily be enough by itself to drive the profitability we were looking for. And as we had expected, after a couple of weeks of ad testing, we were able to get regular costs per lead or costs per webinar signups in the $2 to $4 range, which is fantastic. No one's ever gonna, be upset about that. But at the end of the day, when we were looking at the people coming in and we were looking at the conversion, so to speak, for each step of the funnel from ad to landing page to sign up to sales page, we were seeing a higher drop-off rate than we would like. And the result at the end of the day was only about a 1 times return on ad spend, meaning Tina wasn't losing money, so that's not a bad place to start, but she wasn't making money either, right? She was pretty much getting just enough sales to break even. And so that's when we began our process after a couple of weeks of doing really 2 different types of analyzing, right? Because there's the data analysis piece, and that's really important, but that can sometimes miss some things. So there's also almost like what I call like the human being analysis piece, which is where we take off our marketer hat and we really just like look at, okay, imagine I'm just like a person being targeted with this ad. I'm clicking on this ad. I'm signing up. I'm watching the training. I'm not buying. What, separate from just the data, could be off? Am I the wrong person? Is the offer made incorrectly? What could be missing? And so we looked at all of the information that we had. We looked at the funnel. We looked at the ad. We looked at the data through both of those 2 lenses. And as a result, we came up with 3 primary areas, so to speak, that we felt there could be room to go to work at to improve the overall conversion and the overall return of the funnel. So one of those areas was around messaging. we were again looking at, could we potentially be bringing in the wrong people? We're getting such good costs per lead that sometimes that can actually work against us, right? Like, are we bringing in too many people, any and everybody, that it's costing us so low to bring them in, but they're not the right people converting on the back end? And thinking about even just that phrase of an influencer, like, there's a world in which there could be some negative connotation around that. And we were thinking, again, from the human analysis side, are we maybe bringing in people who aren't serious content creators? They're actually just like, oh, if I'm an influencer, I don't have to work and I can stay at home and do nothing, right? And so again, it was just an idea that somebody on the team had. And so the change that we made is we switched up. Again, the content was the same. We just changed the front-facing messaging from become a full-time influencer to land brand deals as a content creator. So we're specifically already bringing in people who are thinking about and having the mindset of using what Tina teaches to make them money. And then they're going to be that much more likely to be willing to spend money on it, right? So that was one thing that was less about data and more just qualitative, to see, would that do a better job of attracting in the right people who are more serious buyers?
Yes. And that's important, like, because it's a lead isn't a lead, right?
Exactly. I mean, look, I've been saying for years, lead gen for lead gen's sake makes me want to throw up. When I see other people, advertisers, marketers, whatever, bragging on Facebook about their cost per lead, I'm like, show me the ROAS. Like, who really cares? Look, the truth of the matter is, it is not that hard to run Facebook ads and get an email address. It's just not that hard. Like, the whole system that brings in the right people and turns them into revenue is the part that, I hesitate to say hard. It can be simple, but it requires a lot of legwork. Yes,
it does. And so tell me about that process, what, and how you shape that.
So I mean, again, yeah, that really fell under the, let's take off our marketer hat, let's just be human beings and see what we could be missing. And so that was just a lot of brainstorming by the various members of my team. I have, a team of 15, and maybe I'm biased, but I think that we are all brilliant. And so that was just, one of the ideas that got thrown out. And it's not to say that like there was any special process to, uncover that idea, or that, that was definitely the only idea that came up. It was just, we are agile. And one of the ideas that we tested was this, and that ended up seeming to bring in higher quality people who were more likely to make it further and further along in the funnel. And it did drive up the cost per lead by just a little bit. But again, at the end of the day, that was a soft metric we were looking at, not end all be all. And we really, really obviously wanted to bring in the right people who would move further and further along down the funnel. And I think that speaks to the next major change that we did end up executing. And this one was really purely data-based. So we were also able to see, again, looking at every single step from, in the entire customer journey, click-through rate's pretty good, opt-in rate's pretty good, people actually watching the webinar, pretty good. We're getting most people watching. And the webinar is even doing a pretty good job of getting people to the sales page. Our biggest drop-off rate is from sales page to checkout page. And in fact, checkout page to complete purchase is pretty normal rate as well. So we were able to identify that the biggest gap is people are interested enough in the webinar to go to the sales page, but they're not initiating checkout. And so again, no like major special process here other than knowing or being armed with that data, going back through the sales page, providing an audit and looking at opportunities where we could better highlight the value of what was in this program. And again, nothing sexy here, just like this methodical process of A/B testing, trying different things, different aspects of the page, adding in different text, adding in testimonials in different places until we sort of locked into the perfect combination, I guess you could say, where we were now starting to see the number of people who land on the sales page going to the checkout page. We started to see that conversion rate increase. And again, that was our biggest gap in the way that the numbers were originally.
Nice. And how did you solve that?
Again, just going through the page, doing audits, looking at where there could be room for changes, and split testing, a lot of split testing, identifying issues, places where we thought that the text could be stronger, the messaging could be stronger, and trying different messaging for a few days and seeing how that impacted things, and constantly looking at our data and making sure that we were, always collecting data to be able to know, did that change make things better or worse?
Yes. And it's testing. I think way too,
constantly.
yeah.
Yeah.
Way too many people think it's just gonna boom, pop off, and work. And when it doesn't work, they're like, oh, I'm done. This doesn't work, right?
Exactly.
Instagram ads, Facebook ads don't work.
Yes, and like you're preaching to the choir. This is the stuff I talk about all the time, and I love this particular case study because it's not about, we worked with a client in month 1 and made them $5 bajillion. It's like, actually, again, I keep saying this phrase, it highlights the very unsexy, methodical work that gets to get done behind the scenes. There is no special way that we media buy that no one else knows about. That doesn't exist. That's not a thing. It is just this methodical process. And a lot of times what it takes to get your ads really profitable is not just by looking at the ads, right? It's the whole, what I call the system behind the ads. And so this is just such a good example of how this all can transpire.
What was the biggest thing that surprised you that you tested? Was there something that you tested? You're like, I don't think this is going to work. And then it was like, let's throw it out there, and it worked.
I will say, I was surprised at how much changing that front-facing messaging changed everything about the quality coming in. I mean, I understand obviously the concept of that, but it was truly night and day.
Wow.
And what's even more interesting is that using the full-time influencer messaging was working for her organic and inside of her launches. So it was just specifically, and we do see this come up every once in a while. Sometimes we do need to tweak things ever so slightly when we are doing ads, because with her launches that were previously done organically, people, just as an example, right? Maybe a lot of people were finding her on Instagram and following her for a little while. So they knew a little bit more about what she was about before they were potentially signing up for the webinar, whereas we're just going after new cold people right off the bat. And so sometimes we find we have to make those little tweaks and those little adjustments to figure out exactly what's going to work for paid traffic.
Nice. And in the end, what was the result?
Yes. So one last change that I just want to mention that we
yeah.
did make, because the previous open cart period was 3 days. And again, urgency, that can be helpful, but we sort of along the lines of what I was just talking about, we were wondering, were people who were colder, did they need a little bit more time to be nurtured, to follow her on Instagram, especially since that's where so much of her warm audience had come before. So we had her build out a longer nurture sequence. We had her change her open cart period from 3 days to 7 days to give people just a little bit more time. I would say of the 3 things I discussed that moved the needle the least, but it did seem to create a little bit more spaciousness for people who had potentially just discovered Tina the other day and maybe weren't ready to make a $1,000 purchase in 3 days, but 7 days actually seems to make a difference. And so the overall results, just in looking at where we started and then where we got to, and this was over about a 2-month period, going through these optimizations, doing a lot of split testing and making these changes. So just a couple of sort of softer metrics. So the overall funnel conversion rate from a person opting in to getting to that checkout page, which again, we identified was an important number that we were looking at. It was previously about 4.5%, and we got it to 11%. So now 11% of the people who opted in were making it to the checkout page right off the bat. And so that's more than double the number of people making it to the checkout page. We also saw that the cost per a person initiating checkout went from about $75 to about $45, which is a 40% reduction. And look, at the end of the day, all of those things are numbers. Here's the punchline. Originally, when we first launched in those first couple of weeks, all of those metrics came together to create about a 1x return on ad spend. And by the end of the 2 months of all of the testing, we were able to get to a consistent 6x return on ad spend, meaning that for every dollar Tina spends on her ads, she makes 6 back, so on and so forth.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it's a great return, right? It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great, amazing return.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes.
You run my ads.
Yes, we can. Theadgirls.com.
Awesome. Yeah. So, I mean, this has been fantastic. In the next part, we're going to talk about the tactic, but thank you so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show. I really appreciate this, Jennifer. You know, we'll make sure to put a link to the Ad Girls. What's the best place to follow you?
So I am Jen with 2 N's, Jen Spivak on Facebook and Instagram. And then we're the Ad Girls on Instagram as well, or www.theadgirls.com.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll put links to all that. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's down below. If you're listening to this, it's in your show notes. But thank you so much, Jen. And thank you all for taking Jen on your journey. This has been Iron Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.